Let's talk about it with Dr. Shweta Chakraborty. She is in Washington, D.C. to talk with us about this. Super cool, but realistically, how long is it going to take? How many years are we talking about before something like that is implanted in a human being?
Sure, this is super cool. These are the kinds of stories that when they come through, they just kind of, this is why I love doing what I do. This is science and technology innovation, and it's not as far away as one might think. If you think about when 3D printing actually made it to market, it's really hasn't even been a decade and it's already become a thing. And we're seeing fiber polymers that are being printed that are in all kinds of products, and various businesses are using them, from commercial products to, airplanes. And so when you think about the human applications for human health, it's using biomaterial to be able to layer and create these kinds of products like organs, partial organs, full organs. It's actually not that far away. I would say within a decade, we could see real commercial use of all of this.
Dr. Chakraborty, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news here, but we should point out this heart doesn't actually work yet, right? I mean, it's just a 3D printing of a much smaller heart, one that would go in a rabbit or a small animal and not an actual human. How far away do you think we are to actually developing this to the next step, which is to get it into an actual human being?
And that's a great question. And so, again, we have moved so quickly from being able to bring in biomaterial, turn that into successful implants, whether it's cell or it's more vascular objects like a bladder. There's been a successful ovary transplant in mice in recent years. And that has implications for fertility. The heart is much more complex, and the reason that this is so small is because it was being able to create all the structures of this complex organ, from the various blood vessels to chambers to valves. Just that in itself is a feat, and it's taken millions of cells. So being able to create a full-size heart is going to take billions of cells and much more time. And then to be able to get all of these different components to interact with each other, that is really going to be what pushes this technology over the edge. So once we actually get that electricity going across all of these different components of the heart and get it to begin pumping, that is when you are going to see real widespread availability of this type of organ printing.
I wonder, are there any ethical questions being raised around this? Is a human heart if it's made in a 3D printer? I mean, are you hearing anything like that?
The bioethics community is always on top of various innovations and what that means in terms of public pushback or public acceptance of these different advances. And so if you think about all the different ways we can address the challenge of cardiovascular death, we look at let's increase our organ donors, but there's a lot of sensitivities around donating your organs. Or we think about xenotransplantation. We can transplant pig and primate organs into human beings, but what are the ethical implications of that? Now you have an animal part in your human body. So this, if you think about it, from my personal opinion, is that it's still you. If you're using your own cells and your own tissue, and that final end product, you could not tell the difference whether or not it came from you or it was created in a lab. Ultimately, does it matter? These are really interesting ethical questions that we're going to begin to address as these innovations become more commercially viable and become more widespread.
And as you say, you think it's going to happen within a decade. Dr. Shweta Chakraborty, thank you so much for coming on.